Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? Hope that you're doing well wherever you are in the world today. I'm very excited to be back with you with another episode with my friend Ben Curtis, who helps men transform shame. Ben, my friend, it's an honor. Thank you for being here. How are you today?
Hey, Michael, it's an honor to be here. I am really grateful today. Yeah, I'm feeling really grateful to be alive. Had a lot of beautiful conversations already, and I'm really grateful to be in this space with you.
It's an honor to have you here, my friend. For those who do not know you, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got to where you are today.
Right. Well, I am a personal freedom coach, and I focus on men. I help men release shame and self-sabotage and transform it into purpose, power, freedom, and embodiment. I'm also an award-winning actor and musician, so you may know me as the dude you're getting a Dell guy from 20 years ago. I was most famous, brought in the world from then. Born and raised a preacher's kid from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and watching my dad on the pulpit really reaching people. My dad was a sensitive dude, and thank God he passed some of that on to me and encouraged me to honor my feelings and my dreams. And I chased them all the way to New York, and I just continued to break boundaries of what people told me was not possible or where I shouldn't go. And I just followed my heart. And I got into the school of my dreams at New York University. I got an acting scholarship. And within 2 years into school, I got this huge acting campaign for Dell computers, and I immediately became world famous. Um, it was the most exciting moment of my life and terrifying, but I was still in school full time. I was on TV every day. I was getting interviews every day. I was making more money than I've ever made before. And I moved out of the dorms. I was like getting in the big life. I moved in the financial district. I went to this course at Landmark Education. I don't know if people have heard of Landmark before, but it was a personal growth and development organization, and just about dealing with your crap in your life. And I had this huge, amazing awakening of my purpose, and that was in the World Trade Center. And 2 weeks later, and I had a direct view of it from my bedroom. 2 weeks later was 9/11, and I saw everything. I was there. My roommate almost died. I almost died. I was still famous, still in school full time. And the only thing that saved my life literally was being the Dell guy. I was on a bus trying to escape what I thought was World War III, and the driver, like, he saw me covered in soot and crying, and he was like, "Are you the Dell guy?" And because of that, this driver dropped me off at this building where 6 hours later, my best friend turned up. I thought he was dead. And I just had so many run-ins from that moment on. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I had undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder. I was still famous, so I used the money to survive. And mostly that started looking like drugs and alcohol, and really numbed out. And basically was just trying to make everything stop as my career was getting bigger. And I just didn't have the help I needed. And sort of by the grace of God, I got arrested. And that's what I became famous for, was getting arrested. Dude, you're getting a cell was the tagline. And on CNN headline news. And it was, again, a beautiful lesson. I met my fate in that weekend behind bars. I saw where I could go, and I saw I had an opportunity to ask for help, and I just started asking for help. And I got a therapist. I got back in touch with my father. He became my best friend. I started taking care of myself. I let go of my acting career for a while. I mean, I couldn't even get hired if I wanted to. I started playing music again, which is a thing I love. And all of that, like, I started teaching yoga. I became a really intense alcoholic. That didn't get better for years. I got arrested 3 more times, and it just wasn't cool anymore. It was really not a good look. It was leaving me completely alone, destitute, in debt, basically homeless, unlovable. And I didn't know how to love myself. So I kept asking for help, and I put down drugs and alcohol. I haven't had a drink in 9.5 years. And I, again, I sought out therapy, coaches, and men came into my life. And I started realizing I had issues with men. I didn't feel safe around other men, but I knew how to be vulnerable. And I was always beat down for being sensitive. And just over time, coaches and therapists and recovery groups and daily practice, I learned that my sensitivity, my vulnerability, the thing I was most terrified was one of my greatest powers and something that I could actually help other people with. And when I just had people keep reminding me to go help others, get out of my head and into action, and also take time for my heart and take time to feel those feelings. And all of this culminated into my acting career took off. I started a band. I met my wife. She's the lead singer of the band. We're called Dirty May. We travel, tour the world, and I coach men every day. I help men learn how to release all this suffering. And the biggest thing I got out of this was that I was carrying 9/11 around as a badge. I was carrying the arrests around as a badge of like honor of the victimhood and suffering. And when I finally saw that that was a choice, that I could release that suffering and actually choose thriving, it was way more uncomfortable, actually, but less painful. And my life just started working, and things got better. And people started asking me to work with them. And then I realized I love coaching. I love going there. My personal training and yoga clients were getting way too much free therapy from me. So and some of these people weren't going there with me. They weren't, I would hear people ask for help. And then when I'd show up, that I would, especially men, find like they still didn't feel safe asking for it. And so I've made it a mission to create safe spaces for sensitive people, for creatives, and for men especially. I do that just by doing what I love and helping others do the same, and by having conversations. And that all has brought me to it's turned into coaching mostly, and speaking, and getting to connect with awesome humans like you.
We'll be right back to today's show, but first I need to ask you a question. Are you feeling stuck? Are you feeling like you don't have the support to go to the next level in your healing journey? Are you feeling like you wish you had a little bit more support from not only myself, but the Unbroken Nation? Well, my friend, I want to invite you to come and join our live weekly coaching sessions in Think Unbroken. All you have to do is go to Keys, Keys, keys.thinkunbroken.com to sign up and join us today with 100% money back, no questions asked, guaranteed, and no contract or commitment. Every week for the next year, you can come and be a part of our live coaching sessions each Monday as we dive deep into not only answering your questions, but questions from the Unbroken Nation, and help you take all of the information that you learn in the podcast, in the courses, and other areas of this journey, bring them into your life and use it in a way that is practical, life-changing, and transformative. So my friend, join us at keys.thinkunbroken.com, and we will see you this Monday. Yeah, that's incredible, man. That's quite the journey. There's so many different places that we could go, but where I want to really start is in this scope of vulnerability. I look at you, and I are relatively close in age, and we've shared some very interesting experiences together and separately and throughout the course of, the parallels of what it takes to get to where you are.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always come to is thinking about the power of vulnerability and why that matters so much, because you have so many people in the world, especially when geared towards men, and we're told, be strong, don't be a pussy, man up, don't be a bitch, don't cry, don't complain. You hear all of this, and it's like, it's so ingrained and embodied into effectively the DNA of manhood today. And yet, and I don't even necessarily say the word toxic, but it's just the way that it is perceived that manhood should be, I think, is insanely detrimental. And I found myself much like you. Here I am at 30 years old, and I just come out of the last couple of years of like massive struggle, working through all these different demons. And I said to myself, I don't know how to be in connection with men. and I forced myself to go into men's group coaching, and it
Hmm.
changed my life forever. Like, it's really incredible what happened through that. I'm curious, Ben, what do we do for men who are listening to this and they're like, "I don't know where to start?"
It's a great question. I just asked that of someone earlier today. Well, someone who leads men's groups and has been part of men's groups, uh, you know, I would say, first of all, actually, my intuition is telling me you're already in the right place. You're already in the right place. If you're here and you're listening, start to practice awareness, start to practice cultivating those spaces where you don't feel safe, and then start talking about it with other men in your life. Start asking for help. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, Google men's groups. Google, any type of, there's so many men's groups and men's teams out there. And I think that's a great place to start. Looking for a therapist, anyone where you feel safe, whether it's someone you know or you don't know. I find being around other men, uh, it helps me hold accountable for the spaces I feel most uncomfortable. And that's where I know I need to lean in. I even avoid some of my closest male friends sometimes because I know how big of a leader they see me as, and it's confronting. And so we practice spending time together, like holding each other accountable for our greatness, and practice holding space for the days when we're not okay. And I think that's really important, is just practicing being able to say when you're not okay or when you need help. So it could be as simple as just practice asking for help.
The word that comes to mind and you're saying that, and you're welcome to go deep into this, please. The word that comes to mind is discomfort.
Mm.
Right? And so many people, and men or women alike, I think the idea of vulnerability is freaking incredibly uncomfortable. It's one of those things that we do face shame, we do face guilt, we do face judgment and ridicule, but I've come to find most often from myself and less so from the world. And how do you step into that discomfort, Ben, to be able to get, because I think that there's and maybe I'm wrong here, but I believe that there's like this chasm between I need to ask for help and I'm asking for help. And in between those two moments is a whole lot of mind fucking. And so I'm really curious about how one actually steps into that.
Practice. That's the word that comes to mind. Practice. And for me, I mean, it's different for everybody, but you can ask for help anytime you want. You can say no, you can say stop, you can say yes, you can say help, you can say please. You can reach out anytime you want. It's really just, for me, it was like, how much pain did I want to be in? Turns out I was pretty good at being in a lot of pain and suffering. But it became a choice, and it's just when I couldn't handle it anymore, or when I just felt like I couldn't take it anymore, that was a great place. But you don't have to wait till you get to that place. That's hopefully I'm here to help some people know. You don't have to like be behind bars or unemployable or destitute in order to ask for help. So it's just a practice, and then see what happens. It's like you're probably not going to die if you ask for help. Most likely in the Western society, if you're listening to this and you ask for help, you're probably going to live to the next moment. So you might as well ask, because it's basically like, well, what's costing you more, being where you are now and not asking for help? Because if you did, the worst thing that can happen is someone says no, right? And you're just right where you are right now. So there's an opportunity to kind of check ourselves and see, oh, yeah, how free do I want to be? Am I actually willing to be free? That's a good place to look. Like, do I actually want help?
Yeah.
Because we can't, no one can help you unless you're willing to help yourself. But even if you have the willingness to be willing, that's a great place to start. And
Yeah.
I would pray for the willingness. That's what I used to do. If, like, I don't have it, I pray for it. I ask my friends for it. Can I borrow some of your courage, man? I don't know how you do that. And they'd be like, yeah, sure. And then just grab my hand and take me. It was mostly the resistance that was, that that was costing me the most energy and that was taking the most effort. And once I stopped resisting so much, it turned out there was actually a lot of support available. So it's just starting to look for it and being willing to receive it.
Yeah, I love what you said about being willing to receive it because that's so much of it. It's fascinating to me sometimes when I'm working with someone. I'm like, here is the tool. This is the thing that you asked for. Now you must use it. You have to execute with it because if you don't, it doesn't matter. Like wishing is totally different than acting. Like those are two very, very different things. And ultimately, I do believe that just massive action is the only way to truly create the life that you want to have. And there is a tremendous amount of discomfort in it, but it's in the embracing that discomfort in which you discover what you're actually capable of. Because I've come to find that where I'm at in my life, it's 3% of what I can do. And it's like the measurement of, okay, cool. I literally just this morning, I reached out to someone I know. I said, hey man, will you coach me? I see where I need you in my life. Right,
Mm.
I'm in the scope of changing coaches right now because I think eventually we kinda max out with the people we're with, and that's great because that means they've done their job, and
Yeah,
I messaged her, said,
exactly.
"Hey, man, will you coach, man? I need your help here in this area of my life to go to the next level." One of the things I wanna go back to here and talk about because I think it's important, is when people hit rock bottom, and I'll use myself as an example. When I hit my rock bottom and I felt like, "Man, I cannot possibly fuck up any worse," I actually fucked up a little bit more, and I found out I
That's
found
the
out
laughter recognition there. Yeah.
right? I found out some really dark truth about myself. And Ben, I'm wondering in especially in consideration of where you were in your life, how did you start to pick yourself up through that? Because there were, there's a domino effect there that begins to happen. I experienced it too, man. It wasn't just one thing, it was about 97 things. And it wasn't until I got really deep that things started to change. And what I'm curious about, because I know there are people listening right now and they're like, "Yeah, we know it's the Dell guy and he did all this shit, blah, 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 whatever." And to have this idea that I believe people believe, and I only believe this because this was my experience, that this is how I'm going to be remembered, was crushing. And what I'm curious about is, what was the pathway from that rock bottom to today? Like, what did that actually look like?
That's a great question. Um, I'm trying to think like which bottom was actually the rock bottom. There was a lot of them.
Mm.
Um, the one that hits me the most is I was in school, Dell stuff was going on. Pretty sure I had news interviews or radio interviews booked that morning before class. Um, and I developed a pretty steady cocaine habit that I don't really talk about. I'm starting to more now because I just realize I have nothing to hide and I hope someone else hears this. I would even do it in class sometimes, and it was just, I didn't want to, and I was. And I remember I'd been up all night and I knew the only way I was going to get through the next few hours was to get more, or I was just going to crash and burn. And the paralyzing anxiety was setting in, and I called the dealer and they were late, and I was waiting for them, and the sun started to rise, and I looked out my window over the steeple of the Episcopal Trinity Church right there on Rector and Broadway. That was where I lived. And I looked over into Ground Zero, and then the bell rang. And I just saw the steeple, and I'm not super religious, but I grew up, my father's a minister and he's my best friend, and really taught me, he believed in a loving God. And I just felt like God was really reaching into me at that moment and saying, wake the F up. And yeah, I don't talk about that often. Um, it's still a raw space, but I'm feeling just moved that I don't have to be there anymore. In that moment, I knew that was it. I called my dad. I said I wasn't doing well. I'm not okay. And I need help. And my dad was like the only guy I could talk to. And um, amazingly enough, so my father flew up from Atlanta, and we've been through a lot together. And he helped me go through my mail. I hadn't opened my mail in 3 months. It was too scary. It was too much responsibility was piling on, and I just avoided everything. I just couldn't handle the world. And he said, I'm going to take you to a therapist. My dad is an Episcopal priest, and there was an Episcopal church behind us, and he like took me to an Episcopal church where there's this therapist that I could talk to. The therapist said, it sounds like, you're dealing with this, this, and this, and you're not able to function, and which I couldn't. And so I got on, he put me on some medication, suggested it. It wasn't great, but it saved my life. It kept me from killing myself. And it helped me bring up my bottom line enough to be able to really start to get help. And that even wasn't it. I got arrested more times over 10 more years. And I think it was just, I ruined enough relationships. Oh, and the other rock bottom is when I blacked out, like bartending at a bar in New York, when I thought I was starting to do well again. And I got fired from the job where you're allowed to drink for drinking. And then I was a dog walker, and then I started losing that job. I couldn't keep that together. And I got sober, and I asked someone like a bartender, like, how do I like quit smoking? No, how do I quit drinking, but keep smoking weed? Like you do that. And she's like, well, I go to AA. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. And then my ex-girlfriend introduced me to Marijuana Anonymous. I didn't know that like having a problem with cannabis could be a thing. And that was amazing. And then they were like suggesting refraining from drinking, which I thought was ridiculous. But I just like kept reaching for alcohol. And I called that bartender friend, and she took me to a meeting, and it was like pulling the toxins out of myself that I was killing myself with, so that I could actually start to deal with what's really going on, and like other people being there for me. And, 12-step groups were amazing because they're free and just like the society anywhere where anyone could help other people. But I said, why can't we do this outside of here? And they helped me so much. And I actually worked with a therapist, and I got off drugs and alcohol, and I got off medication, and I did like all the PTSD work and all those things. So it was like, really putting those things into place is, and all of that adding up and getting real with myself. I think it's cliche almost, and I love it for that reason, because it resonates for so many of us. But it really is my light, not my darkness, that most frightens me, even to this day.
Yeah.
It still terrifies me sometimes. And so it was like starting to, like we said, practice being uncomfortable, like other people seeing my greatness, and actually like, yeah, I'm white and I grew up with some privilege, but like I did not believe in myself. I had a father that believed in myself, and I did up to a point, but like I could not stop destroying my own life. And then I was attracted to other people who did the same thing. So it was just like, I got one of those people pregnant, and like by the grace of God, we lost a child, and like broke up and got healthy. And like now we're both happily married, and better than ever. And it was just like looking at like the lessons and actually starting to say, okay, enough, I'm ready to learn, and just practicing surrendering and asking for help over and over. That was really the dance, I think, that's made the biggest difference.
Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? We'll be right back to today's episode, but I want to take a moment and invite you to Think Unbroken Conference. That's right, our next conference is happening right around the corner this December with amazing speakers from around the world who are leaders in personal development, trauma education, mindset, and more. All you have to do to register to watch for free, that's right, $0. Come and join us, is go to myunbrokenlife.com, register and sign up. You can get access to the free event. Watch it live with us this December. It'll be myself speaking along with amazing human beings like Anthony Trucks, Jamie Bronstein, Leslie Logan, and a special interview that I'm doing with Dr. Gabor Mate that has never before been released. So come and join us, myunbrokenlife.com. All you have to do is put in your email. We'll send you over the registration. You'll be able to come and join us, watch live. And then if you want access to the recordings, there's more information there for you to keep them forever. But in the meantime, go sign up. Block it off on your calendar. This is going to be a transformational experience that you do not want to miss. Head over to myunbrokenlife.com to register for free. Until next time, be unbroken. Yeah. And same. I look at it's weird, the synchronicities here. When I was 23, I've only talked about this one time ever on the show. When I was 23, my girlfriend at the time had a miscarriage.
Mm.
And I remember just being like, I feel like the universe is telling me something. And I know that's a really like fucking dark way to look at that, but like honestly, it seemed like the most true. And now she's happily married and has kids, and her life is very different. My life is very different, right?
Yeah.
Because like you talked about these toxic people, it's not that like she was a terrible person, but her activities, hours were terrible. It was the drugs, it was the alcohol, it was the late nights, it was the parties, it was the destroying each other because we thought that's what people did. We thought that's relationships, that's connection, that's love. And you look at this, it's what you said, man, like I so resonate with this idea of being so terrified of the light, knowing because it's like the control that we have over the darkness is we let it seep in and we just pretend it's not there and we placate it. And then you're suddenly like, oh yeah, I'm passed out drunk, puke all over me on the bathroom floor again. Must have been a great night. I can't wait to tell people about it.
Yeah.
And then you're down in this moment, you're looking at your life and you're thinking, wait a second. What if? What if I could have this other thing? And that's become such a driver in my life of having the willingness, going back to this word again in this conversation, to say, no, I can have this. I can have the life I want to have. I can have
Yeah.
the love, the relationship, the body, the spirit, the soul, the money, the companionship, the friendships, the everything. And it's the willingness to step into the light. So let's go in that a little bit deeper, Ben.
Mm. Oh, can I say something about that just came up for
Please.
me? Yeah. You know, I remember when I didn't know how to play rock and roll again without being full of drugs and alcohol. And actually, for me, it wasn't like putting the darkness away. It was like I would swim in the darkness. That was like my friend. That was like my creative muse, and be powered by that darkness. But it was so encompassing and would bring everyone else down. And it was actually like me. I booked a show. I remember when I booked it hit me while you're talking. When I booked my first, I said yes to a hosting and stand-up comedy job. And I was sober, and it was in a bar. And I had never done stand-up comedy, or hadn't done it in years. Definitely hadn't done it sober, but just, it was starting to say yes to things that would like, I know I loved, but would terrify me. And then realizing I wasn't going to die, and I actually enjoyed it and loved it and was good at it, and maybe even performed like, after I played music sober, my band was like, whoa, you're so much better, So you started getting affirmation. My family was like, hey, it's good, it's like nice to have our son back again. It was those kind of moments that, had me keep saying yes and leaning into the discomfort.
Yeah, there's something really beautiful. It's again going back to this idea about the domino. As much as you can domino your life into disaster, you can domino it into light. And as I think about
Mm.
that, for the people who so growing up, I'll share some context I don't share often. Growing up, I wanted to be a rock star more than anything. I wanted to be Foo Fighters or Jay-Z. It was one
Oh
or the other.
yeah, me
Between
too,
top,
man.
right?
Same guys. Let's go.
And I've come to find that my quote unquote being a rock star is this. It's the podcast, it's the stage, it's writing, it's stepping into my light, but in a different way. And I found the courage to be able to do it by recognizing and reconciling the fact that growing up I was told to be invisible. And more so, I was told, like, "You're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not capable enough," and so,
Mm.
now part of it is this narrative of challenging that darkness and even, dare I say, using it as fuel.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
what I'm curious about, Ben, is have you found a space in which you're able to take some of that darkness and use it in a positive way?
100%. That's such a great question. Yes, it is like, I talked about dancing with it, and it was like, I'd never put it away, by the way. It did not go away. I befriended it. I got familiar with it. I talked about it. I shared it openly. Like I allowed it to no longer haunt me. So it was like, the more I talk, I mean, the beautiful thing of being like, I mean, the terrible, the tragic and beautiful thing of being like having fame, the moment of that arrest was that I was still getting interviewed. So I was talking about my trauma. I was talking about 9/11. I was talking about what I was going through, but I didn't get to interviews after, I wasn't hireable anymore. Um, so I think, I shoot, I just lost my train of thought for a second. There's something I wanted to say. How I use the darkness. I still play music, and it is like, if you watch me on stage, if you look up some Dirty Maid videos on YouTube of my wife and I, like, people are like, "Whoa, dude." Like, I allow it to come out in really healthy places. Like when I work out, when I run, when I'm, that's what I love about acting. I've played some really dark, tragic, tortured people, but I can actually use the darkness in a healthy way. There's actors who will go there and swim in that suffering, but I've actually already, we've suffered enough. It's actually just allowing to familiarize ourselves, and honestly, we've had a lot of grief in my life lately. So we lost our grandmother as my wife's grandmother, but I had re adopted her as mine. She and I adopted each other a few years ago, but she lived to be 101, but she passed basically a month after my father passed, and he was my best friend and sure that he was going to live another 10 years. And then we found out we tried to have a child. We were immediately successful, and we found out like the year anniversary of my father's passing, and then really ready, and then we lost a child. And so it's just been like, and other things. And then all of this, I'm realizing the older I get, the more I'm gonna lose people, and that grief and loss and sadness and darkness, they're just as beautiful as life and birth and light. And so I've actually learned to allow space in my day for grief and light. Yesterday, I spent an hour meditating and crying, and then I said yes to a 20-minute bike ride with my wife because the sun came out for 5 minutes. So that's kind of how I dance in it today is, we each have our own spaces. I worked really hard to create a safe space for myself so if I need to yell or like bang on a pillow or scream in the car safely, or like I do yard work, but I talk about it, and I use it in creativity. And I think even like, I love like Basquiat's one of my favorite artists, because he had like, you can see some of his mental illness in his work, and it's so beautiful to me. The like tragedy and the love and the possibility he saw inside of how uniquely, I mean, I don't even want to call it mental illness. I want to call it mental uniqueness, because we stigmatize mental illness. I mean, I feel like a lot of us do post-pandemic, but it's actually, there's an opportunity to create with it and to make beauty out of it. And it can be as easy as talking about it, which is the thing we're most terrified and why these things haunt us. But we all live with it. 1 in 4 women have miscarriages. It happens all the time. Women are creating and losing life, and there are partners beside them going through with it, and we don't talk about it. And men are killing themselves, and we don't talk about it. So, I just think being able to be open and have these spaces and seek out more safe spaces is just the medicine.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm so happy that you're here, my friend. And having this conversation and the vulnerability and the honesty and especially in such a public forum. And I'm such a proponent of let's have the conversation. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's difficult, but it's necessary. And stepping into the discomfort of that in real time is how we change the world. So I've got a massive amount of appreciation for you. Before I ask you my last question, Ben,
Thank
can
you.
you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes, Ben Curtis official. That's my Instagram, Facebook. BenCurtis.co is my website. But if you go to my Instagram, it has a link to everything I do, to book coaching calls, to my men's group, The Lion's Den, to my music and art, and to interviews like this awesome one here today.
And of course, we'll put all the links in the show notes for the audience.
Yeah.
And my
Oh,
last
can I say
question,
one thing real quick?
please.
Okay, and I have a new podcast that I have not released yet. It's called Dude, You're Getting Well. And Michael is one of my featured guests. So please be on the lookout for it because it's going to come out in the next week or two and you'll start seeing the notices. But I'm really excited because we got some good stories with Michael too on the other side. So I just wanted to share that too because it's been such a gift to be in your circle, and on the other side, you're a great inspiration.
Thank you, my friend. That means so much to me. It really does. And same, trust me. We've been following each other for years, for those who don't know. So that said, my friend, my last question for you. What does it mean to you to be unbroken?
Honest, vulnerable, raw, real, and unleashed. In love.
Br- Hmm, brilliantly said, my friend. Goosebumps, literally. Um, Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Unbroken Nation, thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, tell a friend. And until next time, my friends, be unbroken. I'll see ya. Hey, Unbroken Nation, we'll be right back to the show, but I wanted to let you know that you can grab a copy of my first book, Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma, for free. If you go to book.thinkunbroken.com, you can download the PDF ebook version of the book and get everything that I know about the baseline of healing trauma for free, downloaded to your email right now. Just go to book.thinkunbroken.com to download your copy of Think Unbroken, Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma for a PDF for your phone. Again, that is book.thinkunbroken.com. Thank you so much for listening to Think Unbroken. Please share this episode with someone who could use it and help us move forward in our mission of ending generational trauma in our lifetime. And if you would, please take 5 seconds to pop on iTunes or Spotify, hit that 5-star, leave a review, and you can also reach out to us on social at Michael Unbroken or at Think Unbroken. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel at Think Unbroken. Thank you for being a part of Unbroken Nation, my friends. And until next time, be unbroken.